Yo, my name is Big Lou, and you are now listening to Go Produce. We're the show that explores how music industry professionals turn their passion into profits. In this episode, we've got Jay Westman, who is now a family man with over 20 years of drumming experience, which is taking him on tours across Canada, Japan, Australia, and the US. The Go Produce focus of this episode is, what is the process that you went through developing as an artist, broken down step by step? If you want to know what it's like to tour internationally, or you want to learn more about life after doing so, then this episode is for you. All right, thank you, Jay, so much for being here. I want you to know that we very much do appreciate your time, so let's go ahead and make the most of this and go produce. Listeners, let me tell you who we've got in store for you today. Jay is a family man who's been playing drums for over 20 years. His old band, The Weeknd from the 1990s, sold a song to Disney for the movie Freaky Friday in the 2000s. Throughout this period, he has spent time touring Canada, the US, Australia, and Japan. He has also spent a number of years teaching drums. He is currently endorsed by Peace Drums and Murat Dural Cymbals. Also currently, he plays in the Canadian band Red Arms and is called in as a live fill-in for local bands and session work when available. Jay Westman, welcome to the show.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yes, we're very happy to have you here. Like I said, though, let's waste no more time and get going. Let's go produce. First segment of the show is called The Basics. Let's get it going. That was an attempt at trying a signature dance, but we'll see what happens if it sticks or not. What we're going to do with the basics is we're going to run through some simple questions so that we can get to know you a little bit better and we can understand where we're going to go with this. All right?
Sounds good.
Beautiful. Started off with this one. What is your first musical memory?
First one would be, so my grandfather or Papa was he was a big band orchestra leader. So it was Lionel Thornton and the Castle Royal Orchestra. So they used to play around Ontario, Stork Club in Port Stanley, Wonderland Gardens in Wonderland. And my first memory, honestly, is going to these Sunday dances where it was like, a nickel to dance. And
a nickel?
It was like 5 cents or 10 cents to get on the dance floor back in those days. But we would go for, like Mother's Day, they'd have a big blowout dance and my Papa's band would play. It was him and Guy Lombardo back in the day. So one of my earliest memories was he played stand-up bass and he was, one of the singers, and he'd hire a bunch of like local teachers, musicians at schools, and he was gone every weekend. So one of my first memories was honestly going to one of these things and seeing him up on stage, and it was awesome.
So that was almost, it became the norm for you,
1,000%.
Going out of your way to this event and seeing all this.
Yeah.
It's safe to say it did mold you a bit.
Totally. And I mean, he passed away before I actually started playing drums, which is crazy, and got into music. But it was always, the seed was kind of obviously already there and it was already in the family. But yeah, it was, and it was so cool. That stuff was just awesome. It was so cool. That era was amazing.
Yeah, very awesome. I swear, no matter how many guests we end up getting on this show, you can always ask that question and you will always get a different answer, which is kind of cool.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Tell us what it means to be endorsed. Just a basic understanding so that we're all on the same page moving forward.
Yeah, so it's basically getting to a situation where either the band is large enough, or you're touring enough, or you've got the right connections to really get some sort of a discount all the way up to free gear, which is huge when you're a starving musician and don't have money. And drum stuff, everything costs a ton of money. So it means a lot, but it means cheaper or up to free gear, which is huge when you're touring a lot and smashing and breaking stuff.
And that's something you come across as your career develops. It's not something that a starting up artist runs into.
Yeah, you got to work for it unless you've got a connection, right? So you got to pay your dues, and a lot of it comes to you, or when you get on a label or a publishing deal, you get more connections, and that's kind of how those things work. Or you can in this day and age get online, go to a cymbal website, and submit, and then hopefully they get back to you and you might get a discount. But I mean, the larger the band, the more you're touring, the cheaper the stuff will be.
I hear you. What does it look like specifically for you with Peace Drums and Murat Dural cymbals?
Yeah, great question. So I've been with I've been with Peace now since 2002, 2003. Um, yeah, long time. Um, and really, it was a connection through a guy that I know that's involved with the Bare Naked Ladies that I worked with randomly at an HMV. It's a weird story, but he knew that.
We got time for a story.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's fair. He knew that I was the band I was in at the time. The Weekend was we had a EMI publishing deal, and we were touring a lot. So there's visibility for any type of endorsement company, right? So he got me in contact with this guy that was a rep with Peace. We happened to be on tour, and we're out in California. He came and saw a show. It actually endorsed me prior to the show, and then when he was out there, he's like, "Oh man, you guys were better than I thought. I wish I had given you a full ride, which meant free." And I was getting like something crazy, like 70% off list or something, which is like a smoking deal. But after that, I was like, "Well, dude, you can rewrite the contract, right?" It's like, "I'm
It's
here.
not
I'll
too
sign
late.
anything." But and I've been with them ever since. And actually, this a scary thing that it depends probably on the situation. But when I left the Weekend, I was scared to call him and tell him because I didn't want to lose it. And the coolest part was that I called and I was like, "Okay, I left the band." And I figured it was done. It was a done deal. And he goes, "You know what, dude? We signed you, not the band you're in.
Win.
We're endorsing you as a musician and a drummer, not because you were like good you're in the Weekend and you were touring a lot, but and they've been with me ever since." So
That's
pretty
a
cool.
happy story.
Yeah,
That's a happy
absolutely.
story. Cool. Very cool. So you got the endorsements because you spent a lot of time developing the skill of a drummer.
Absolutely.
How did you learn the drums?
I started late. I didn't start playing drums actually until I was 17, which is pretty late. I didn't play in high school, none of that stuff. I didn't take music in
What
high
was it that got
school.
you going?
Uh, I had just bought a foosball table on layaway. That's how old I am.
No comment.
Yeah, you can Google it later. You look young enough that you don't know what it is. No,
Well, thank you.
and,
No comment on that either.
a buddy of mine said his buddy was starting a punk rock band. And I'm like, "Well, I'll play drums." He's like, "But you don't have drums." I'm like, "Yeah, but I've always wanted drums." So I sold my foosball table that I'd had for like 6 months, borrowed money from my uncle, and went into the ads in the London Free Press in a penny saver back then, looking through the musical instruments section. Called up my cousin, who was the only dude I knew that played drums, and said, like, "Are these good? I don't know." Bought a drum kit, and at the same time, the guy that was selling them also was in the works with a guy that taught drums. So it was like, "Hey, buy my drums, take this guy's card if you want to learn." So it was like a 2-for-1 where I got my first set of drums and then had a contact to start to learn because I wanted to learn how to read music. Um, Most drummers don't, to be honest with you. In my years of teaching, they don't. But that's kind of how it all started for me and how I got my first drum kit and brought it downstairs and I could play. And my parents were like, "Shit, we should have probably got him drums 10 years ago when he asked." Yeah.
Yeah. Funny how that happens. Now, before we move on, I know we made a little bit of a joke about it, but for our young audience, can you describe what layaway is?
Yeah, it's when you don't have money and you want something, they will let you pay in basically installments. So this yeah. So I want this, but I can't pay for it. It's $500. I will come in and give you $30. Basically I could go in whenever I had extra money, and then when I eventually owned it, then I got to take it home. Yeah.
Then you got to take it home. Yeah. So it
That
keeps
is
the fire
older
under
than
you.
me, Luis. It's
What's
very,
that?
very old. Very old. Before your time.
No need to rub it in, man.
Walmart in the States does it actually.
Still to this day.
I think they do, which doesn't surprise me.
Interesting.
Any money they can get.
Yo, you're not. I hear you. Yes. You mentioned it was a punk rock band that your friends were starting.
It
Is
was.
that where you followed, like, the genre that you stuck with throughout your whole experience?
No, absolutely not, actually. Once I started to go to drum lessons and learn different styles of music, that's what to me encompassed being a musician, right? I didn't want to be a one trick pony, and to be honest, with my attention span at the time, it was just same punk rock beats over and over and over, and then just messing around with different drum fills. It got kind of, after a while, it was like, okay, I can do this, and not for any other reason other than I wanted to expand my musical genres. I tended to jump into different types of bands solely because I wanted to learn different stuff. Teaching drums eventually was a huge component to that, because you can teach is what you want, but kids are going to ask you to do certain stuff, learn certain songs, and it gets you out of, if you're narrow minded, it's going to really open you up. And I worked at a record store the whole time too, so I was exposed to all kinds of music. My parents played music in the house all the time, so I wasn't like one of those punk rock, that's all I want. Like, I was into that stuff because I skateboarded and played in a punk rock band, but yeah, as far as for learning different styles, like, that was huge for me. So I tended to jump into different types of bands.
It's very interesting. Even if you did want to focus and really hone in your attention on punk rock, testing out different genres will help you develop that skill even more. I wonder though, is there anything that you do today other than testing out different genres to challenge yourself?
It's harder. Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's harder as I get older because I have less time. So I was lucky, obviously, when I was younger. I was, once I started playing and we got our first noise complaint at the house and the cops showed up, my dad went and spent all the money to soundproof the basement. God knows how much that cost back then. But it was like, he didn't even think about it. Soundproofed it. It would jam all the time. And there was a point where I could play every CD that I owned in my CD collection at the time, because I would just go downstairs at any time I wanted, close the door, and I could just play. So now it's a little bit trickier. I don't have a drum kit at my current house. I've got two drum kits at two different spaces, one with Red Arms, who I'm currently in, and one with another band and a couple other bands that I'm working with on the side now. But nothing at home. I've got a practice pad, but they get boring. They get boring pretty quick. So I just try to listen to different music, and obviously I hone into the drums being a drummer. And then if I hear stuff that's cool, then when I'll go to practice or a session, that's what I'll try to work on when I'm warming up, to try and kind of continue to expand I guess my arsenal of like drum fills and beats and stuff.
That's very cool.
That makes sense.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, it is an element that you have to practice to get better. You mentioned your grandfather earlier being like the limelight of the show.
Yeah.
Perhaps he was a musical inspiration previously, perhaps he still is, but is there anyone that you consider to be your biggest musical inspiration, especially since you've ventured through so many genres?
That's a good question. I really don't. I'm one of those guys where somebody asked me like, "Oh, let me guess, Neil Peart's like one of your favorite drummers." I'm like, I hate Rush, and I hate that band. I would, and I hate to say that, but like, give me Rush without the vocals, and maybe I'll get into it. But I just, I'm big on vocals too. But I don't really have. I kind of shamelessly steal and borrow from bands and artists that I watch and see in styles and certain stuff. So I mean, obviously big into live music. Even just seeing an opening band and seeing some dude do something that you're like, "Holy, how do you do that?" Gets the brain going, and I'm immediately, the next time I'm on my drum kit, going, "Okay, he did what the heck?" And trying to figure it out or piece it together. So I think when you're into music that much, it naturally happens all the time, and you don't stop.
Yeah, it's almost a hunger you have to satisfy.
It doesn't stop. I'm always tapping on stuff. My feet are always, it drives my wife nuts. But I mean, it's worse if I'm not active in bands. She'll tell me to like start another band because she's losing her mind. But it doesn't turn off. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't really have any influences really, which is weird. Like, I mean, there's certain bands that I listened to when I started out, uh, to get kind of an idea of drum fills and certain stuff. So I mean, Lagwagon drummer was awesome back in the day. No Effects, some of those bands when I started in punk rock. But then it evolved. So I would kind of do my homework if I was in like I joined a metal band, like, shit, I don't play metal. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a guy in a metal band playing punk rock drums in a metal band and doing punk rock fills, and it worked. But I would listen to I'm like, dude, what are you guys listening to right now? And they're like, oh, this. I'm like, yeah, I should probably listen to this stuff. And then I would listen and go, okay, that's kind of the style. Okay, these are the fills that are kind of metally fills. But at the same time, like, you can cross over genres with that stuff, and that's kind of what I've always done.
Even their vocals, you can cross over genres with their vocals.
Sure.
Let's take a pause and intermission here. That's hilarious. So you're familiar with Dream Theater, yes?
Yes, I am.
How about Mike Portnoy's vocals?
I've never into Dream Theater. I was into, obviously, Courtney as a drummer.
Oh, what about his drumming?
His drumming's awesome. It's lights out. It's fantastic. His time signatures and everything are nuts, right? Like, those are those guys. That's like math metal.
Let's just stop for a little second and just analyze the fact that Louis asked for the vocals. I am not gonna let this go.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, that's why I kept moving on.
See, like a good guest. This is a great guest, guys.
Well, you had a 1 in how many guys are in Dream Theater? 4, 1 in 5. Courtney's the drummer, doesn't sing.
Ask Louis. He sure knows the names of
5.
the guys.
We're just moving on. I got other questions.
Awesome.
That's hilarious. Cool. I wonder, with all of this experience, do you ever experience imposter syndrome?
Elaborate, like, as far as like feeling like I'm just emulating something else and just like kind of copycat, or
not necessarily copycat, like, oh damn, I'm really here. How is this happening? I didn't think that like it would grow to this magnitude. Should I even be here? Do I belong here? Like, are they figuring out that I don't really know what I'm doing? All of that kind of stuff.
I've always been pretty confident in any of the situations I've been in. I mean, there's been instances when I was younger and we were on tour and maybe it was a larger venue or, a first time on a big tour and stuff. And it's like, holy shit, like, hopefully this doesn't implode. Hopefully, people like the band and I can continue to do this. But yeah, I mean, I think the confidence is a big piece of it too. I mean, if you practice and the band's tight and you sound good live, not just on recording, then I mean, people are going to be into you. And then if you stay active and depending on, what genres are popular at the time and everyone's attention spans, you can have a run at it. Right. So I've always, and I've dipped in all kinds of different scenes too. And there's, subcultures and like, I mean, just like nuts for certain types of styles of music. And there's always going to be those little subgenres and almost like cult groups of people that are going to come out to those shows.
I hear you. So if you do feel the nerves, the imposter syndrome kind of kicking in, remind yourself that you deserve it. You're confident that you should be there and just go with it. Have fun, but make sure you do the work ahead of time, the practice work.
If you're underprepared and you get nervous, you're like, honestly, like, I mean, if a band plays the first show and you should have waited a couple more months, you get the nerves when you're on stage. You play faster than you probably should. Everything gets sped up and you're going to forget stuff. You're going to get blurry. You're going to get off track. It happens. But if you take your time and because everyone wants to go out and play, but you've got to spend your time. You got to hone it.
Yes, I hear you. Seems like you're pretty busy with all of this stuff. How and why do you find time to work as a filler? Do you is it maybe working with different groups of people? Or what's going on?
Yeah, so I mean, it's normally some of my buddies that I've known through the scene for years. They'll have a project and they might need drums on a couple of tracks. I'm going to go into the studio in a couple of weeks. A buddy of mine who I've done stuff for before wants me to do a couple of tracks for his band. So he sends me the stuff. I practice it for a little bit, go into the studio, try and do it as quickly as possible because it's costing him money. And it's costing him money to pay me to do it. So it's a double dip, right? He's paying for the studio and he's paying for me. So it's about just, doing my homework so I can go in there and bang out the tunes for him as quickly as possible. But yeah, I mean, I do it because I want to do it. And I'll be honest, as I get older, and priorities shift, and I have less time to practice than when I was 20 and I could go downstairs and play for 3 hours a night, which I can't do anymore. I would rather be in the studio, to be honest with you, and in that environment, putting stuff on a record than, playing a show for 50 people at Call the Office nowadays, if I had the choice, to be honest with you. Right. Because I've done that so much that in the studio, it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Nice. So being in a band and coming to the end of that isn't necessarily the end of your career.
No, I would say it depends on what you want. I would also say it depends on how good you are. I'm lucky enough that I'm a decent enough drummer where, I could probably be well, I'm normally in multiple bands, and it drives my wife nuts. But I mean, I could be probably in 3-4 other bands right now if I wanted to. And parts of me was like, yeah, I could probably do that. Yeah, I could fit it in, right? I've only got 2 kids and a wife and a full-time job. I could probably do that.
Do not do that.
But part of me, right? Like, I mean, it's like 22-year-old me gets in there and goes, yeah, man, you can do this. Yeah, you can go out every night and still play drums. But so I pick my spot. So I get to kind of pick who I want to play with, and who I want to spend my time with, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. That draws a conclusion to this segment. Let's move on to the second segment. The second segment is called Speed Round. We're going quick. In this segment, what we're going to do is I'm going to be throwing 20 simple questions at you, and you have to answer them with just one word. Yes, no, this or that. Very simple. Afterwards, you do get the chance to clarify. Cool?
Okay, cool.
All right. That's the speed round. Let's give her going. Does your birthday always happen on the same day?
Yes.
Snare open or closed?
Closed.
Are you a night owl or an early riser?
Oh, night owl.
Do you play any instruments, other instruments?
No.
Does Will Ferrell look like Chad Smith?
Yes, absolutely.
Caffeine or nah?
All the hot pots, fresh pots, all of them.
Does the tension on your floor tom slinky or tight?
I'll go mid slink tight.
Would you go on tour internationally again if the opportunity arose?
100%. Yeah.
Dessert before dinner?
Why not?
Best brand of drum hardware is?
Ooh, pass.
Would you rather hear the good news or the bad news first?
The bad.
Would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button on your life?
No, either. Wouldn't want either one.
Pinball is the greatest game ever invented.
Oh, yes, Brad, it is.
Shout out, Brad. Do UFOs have a weight limit for carry-on luggage?
Yes.
Work hard or play hard?
Both.
Has anybody ever photoshopped your face onto a bunny?
Yes.
Ninjas or pirates?
What? What was that one?
Ninjas. Yeah, it was pretty elusive. Ninjas or pirates?
Well played. The pirates.
Neat or on the rocks?
Neat.
Summer, winter, fall, or spring?
Well, there's only winter and summer. There's only 2 seasons now, so I'll say summer.
Fair. Fair. Your favorite artist is?
Currently, the Menzingers.
The Menzingers.
Yeah, they're from Philadelphia. That's what I'm listening to right now. I can't stop.
Interesting. Maybe we put them on after, see what it sounds like.
Really good.
That brings us to the end of the speed round.
Yes.
Oh, I missed the ding. We're gonna have some fun with that after.
Post sync.
Post sync. Yeah, let's see what happens. Jay, I got a couple of ones that I want to ask about, but I'm curious. Do you have any clarifications if you remembered any?
Don't remember.
Those 20.
Too old. No.
Okay.
Went too fast.
Okay. Let's do the tension of your floor tom. You said mid slink.
Well, yeah, it was slinky and it was tight, right? So it's like that. I'll be honest, that drove me nuts. That question was actually really specific because it's like my pet peeve. Anyone that's a drummer or a studio guy, tuning floor toms suck. Once you get them dialed in, fantastic. But so it's too tight, it sounds like crap. Too loose, and it sounds flat. So it's like that's why I kind of said mid. You want to have a little bit of flex to it, but it comes down to personal preference. But that question actually in my head, like my mind exploded when you asked me that question. I was like,
That's so funny. That's
yeah,
so
because they
funny.
stuck the tune.
Perfect.
But
We did a good job with
yeah,
that
so
then.
that drove me nuts. That was a good question.
My next question is who is Brad? I gave him a shout out, but like
Just a guy. No, you know what? Any good guy that'll get into a van and drive and help you carry home a pinball machine that weighs 300 to 350 pounds and put it in your basement is a solid dude. So obviously, yeah, Brad's a buddy of mine that I met, in my current job with TD. He's a pinhead. He's just an all around rad guy. And again, like without a moment's notice, was like, hey, I'm gonna go for 2 hours and drive. You want to come with me and pick up a pinball machine? And he was like, yeah, man, when do we leave? So,
good
and
guy
he's
Brad.
stronger than me, so that helps.
Good guy Brad, saving the day. That's awesome. And the last clarification I want for this is who was this person that photoshopped your face onto a bunny? I mean, like, what was the circumstance?
Yeah, it was Brad. That was Brad. That was at work.
Good guy Brad.
That was a big nice poster of me at work in front of for everyone to see on a wall in a department for everyone to see. Yeah, he got quite good at that near the end of his time there when we were on the same team together. And yeah, he killed it. It was pretty funny.
That's jokes. If Brad is listening to this, wherever you are, feel free to share that picture with us if you've got it.
I'm sure he's got multiple copies.
I don't think Jay might want this, but like, it's okay. That's awesome.
You can bring it out. It was well done.
Awesome. Jay, that is the end of the speed round. Our next segment of the show is What's Yo Take? In this segment, I'm going to be providing you with quotes, statements, topics, and we ask you to only share your perspective, your opinion, so that we can grow as individuals. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Getting a manager is an organic process. What's your take on that?
For bands, I would say it depends. And I mean, it's changed probably, in the 20 something years I've been doing it. But I mean, I'd say organic would be fantastic, where you get approached just based on, how the band's doing and buzz and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's different ways that it happens now. I think there's so many different more ways for bands to proactively reach out versus having to be in the right place at the right time. So I would say organic, yeah, would be awesome if you're just in a spot where it's coming to you. But I would say a lot of the times, and especially now, like everyone's eager, everyone wants to, their chance to play music for a living. So it's a heck of a lot easier. Like when I was on tour, we didn't have cell phones. We had like a flip phone, and our itinerary was like all printed out. It was all MapQuest, and we got paid in checks and they got deposited. Where nowadays it's like, so if we didn't sell enough merch, we didn't have enough money potentially to eat tomorrow during the day on the drive to the next show because we had to wait for the check to clear. So it's like 5 business days. So nowadays it's all electronic. It's all, you got your money now. You swipe this, that at merch tables. The same with having more access and to management companies now. But it's trickier. It's oversaturated. So it's a double-edged sword. It's easier to contact, but there's way more bands probably contacting than there would have been 20 years ago. So yeah, it depends on how you look at that one.
Yeah. So it's tougher to sell yourself, or is it easier to sell yourself?
I'd say it's easier to sell yourself, but there's more people selling themselves because it's easier. So
you got to bring more value.
You're in a larger pond, so you've got to stand out. You've got to have the image needs to make sense. The song's got to be strong. The band needs to be strong as far as even personalities and how you get along. I've been in situations where they've asked how many members have been in the band because they're scared of turnover, right? If the band's fighting and people are quitting all the time, they don't want to put money behind that because you guys could, right? So there's a lot that you have to think about.
Personal drama.
Yeah,
how
totally.
So after you do set yourself apart from the crowd of other bands or artists, individual artists, and you bring value to a manager potentially, how do you know that manager and yourself or your band will have the right chemistry?
Yeah, you don't. You really don't. I've been in situations where it works well and the communication's good. And I'll be honest, I've been in horrible situations where you're not getting straight answers. There's conflicts of interest, but you're young and you're on the road and you're not spending any money. You might not be making money, but I'm playing drums for 3 months on the road, and free drinks and free dinner and hotels, and then at the end of the tour, it's like, how much are we getting paid for every show? I don't know. Well, let's ask the manager. And it's like, can I see the books? No, right? Like, yeah, I've been there. So I- it really depends. I would say you really don't know. You have if you get to a situation where you're lucky enough to to be in a spot where you can get a manager, you got to try it.
Should you like almost set a time frame? Like enough's enough. Make a decision and move on.
Just want to play, you don't think about it, and then all of a sudden it could be you want out, and it's like, well, you signed here, I got you for another year, you can't release it. I've seen some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, good and bad. So I mean, you just got to do your research, and just it's tough. That's a tough question. That's a really tough question.
I hear you. So we're gonna take a similar conversation, but around agents. Is that an organic process?
um
Are you
I
trying to
would
sell
say
yourself? Like, are you out there looking for agents, hunting them? What does that look like? That interaction as an artist or a band?
so. My experience is normally the agents, the manager or label, or publisher, kind of already has connections to agencies, um, and you're normally kind of put on one of those types of agencies once you're at a certain, I guess, level, right? So, because they're all about making their percentage, right? So, a lot of it is, kind of back end deals where it's a larger band that's on the publishing deal, say, and you're going to be opening support, right? It's you don't normally start headlining tours across Canada. You go open for somebody that's bigger than you, and you get the opening spot for 30-40 minutes, and you hope that you gain that band's fans, and it keeps organically growing. When you get to a certain point where you got heads in the room, on your own, then that's normally when an agency or an agent would come around, because it's worth it for them, if that makes sense. You got to be making enough money and touring and be willing to be on the road in order for them to put the time in, for sure.
Right, right. Interesting. Are there different characteristics or traits that you look for specifically in these individuals? So a manager, you want this and this and this, and an agent, you want this and this and this.
Transparency, man. Like, I mean, it's got to be someone that's also into the music. Like, you can tell if someone's into it. You can tell if they kind of talk the lingo, if they actually know of the type of bands that you're talking about, the genre that you're into, versus someone that's just sees dollar signs potentially. Yeah. They tend to be a little sketchier, talk more about money versus, like, to your point, kind of organically growing the band, seeing a vision, and I would say some of that depends on how you're introduced too. But yeah.
But it doesn't vary between the different specific professions itself? Or
I would say that's a tough one. I would say it depends, because there's so many different levels of, like, if you get someone that's new or you get someone that's done it for a while, like there's a lot of varying degrees of, like, almost like the new guy on the job is going to miss certain stuff, where you got some old salty dog that's, done it, 5-10 years. He might be able to talk and smooth you up better. It doesn't mean it's going to be a better result. But again, transparency is huge, and just, have an open dialogue
Yeah.
is also huge.
Yeah. And I do assume that at least in part, you're gonna get that through experience, the transparency.
Yeah.
You build that, you develop that. That's nothing you just jump into. I mean, you can listen to others who've experienced, which is great. That'll help you jump a couple notches, but it's
Yeah.
experience.
And do your research, right? If someone's coming around, if your buddies or someone, somebody else that's been with that manager or with this guy or whatever, kind of poke around. It's almost like, see if the guy's got a Google review through people that right? How many stars this guy got out of 5? He's got 1. I don't want to touch this guy. He's going to lock us down, and then we're screwed, right?
Due diligence. Exactly.
It's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky.
All right. So way back when you were amateur, booking tours was simple then. What's your take?
Yeah, because booking tours back then, you did it yourself via email, and you hope that the bars that you researched on the interweb got back to you, and then you map quested and printed out directions, and you did shows on your own. I would say it was easier to actually get shows back then on your own. It didn't mean they were great, but it it means that you could actually get into a room a little bit quicker. Or back we would do, I was in punk rock bands, we would rent out halls, right?
Yeah.
Or even church halls and stuff like that, where they would rent you the rooms.
Would you be bringing people along outside of the band, or is it just focused like don't do that?
No, but I mean, you get a couple people that would come with you. If you got merch, someone's gonna watch the merch. Someone's gonna hang out, help you load your gear. Just a couple of your buddies that are totally into the same music as you, and they're totally supportive. You hopefully get carloads of your buddies coming out to shows. But yeah, back then I would say it was easier. There was just less venues, so it was probably easier too. But yeah.
And what about going internationally? Was that as simple as doing so at home, or what were the biggest changes there for you?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, that was all done through the label. So I've known some bands over the years that really work the government grants to get funding to do that, and then they can map something out that way. I was lucky enough where when I did anything like that, it was already done through our manager and the label, and through the government grants as well. So it was a kind of show up at the airport. Here's the itinerary. Everything's paid for. Let's go, which was awesome. Yeah,
Go entertain.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. I like that. That is the end of this segment. We've accomplished this, and we're moving very nicely, moving right into our next one. Our next segment is called the Wheel Challenge.
Wheel Challenge. Right.
Oh, we're still going. In the Wheel Challenge, I'm going to be spinning this marvelous wheel behind me, and you get to achieve or attempt to achieve whatever task is assigned. You may get lucky, you may not, but we'll figure that out real soon.
All right.
Cool?
All right.
It's great. It's great that you got your paper because you are going to be drawing blindfolded.
Oh,
yes?
Okay.
Perfect. Let me just determine here what you're going to be drawing. All right. I'm good to go if you're ready to go.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of rules that I'll tell you real quick.
Okay.
You can't look down when you draw.
Okay.
It's technically blindfolded, but we can't blindfold you. So either look at me or look up. Just don't look down.
Okay.
Second rule is you've got 10 seconds to do this.
That's it. Okay, nice.
Yeah,
appreciate
I'll be asking you to draw 3 different items, but you have 10 seconds for each. Cool?
Okay.
All right. So the first item, as soon as I say it, we'll start the timer.
All right.
Is a microphone. It's 5 seconds.
I don't
2,
even know where I am on the paper.
1,
shit.
Time.
Oh.
All right, now the grumpy sound guy is going to be the judge. So you got to show us on the camera here.
Oh, man.
I conveniently left that part out. Grumpy sound guy, what you think? No.
Blur the dots. Blur the color, man. Just give me some
Step
arts.
your game up, Jay. All right.
Yes. All right, fair.
You got 2 more. You got 2 more attempts here. But this next one is, you ready?
Okay, yeah. Let's go straight ahead while I draw. What was it?
Straight ahead. The yin yang symbol.
Sure. Right.
5 seconds left.
Of course.
2, 1.
I don't think I hit that circle.
Time. let the grumpy sound guy be the judge of that. Let's see.
Oh, I came up way short. You see what I'm trying to do there? That wasn't. Yeah, no.
Yeah, on the way.
Right? Ah, come on.
Not even words. Not even words. Just get out of here with that nonsense.
The pressure. This is.
Use the 10 seconds better, man.
That's what I'm a drummer. I'm in the back. I'm not supposed to be in the front. It's killing me.
Okay, we got one more ask of you for this drawing.
Can't wait to fail.
You got this one. You might actually get this. Mickey Mouse. Just the head.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Big ear. Big ear. No, those are too
Let's
close
do
together.
5 seconds now.
No, this is not. This is going to look so creepy. I don't know where.
Oh,
He's got an eye, maybe.
ish.
Where am I?
Oh, I like that.
Hey.
Yes. Hey,
That's
redemption.
awesome. That's
Fantastic.
awesome. Out of nowhere, he salvaged 1 point. That's awesome.
I can't remember the last time I even attempted to draw, let alone not look at it. So that was very interesting.
Testing your abilities here.
It was terrible, clearly.
That's jokes. Next up is our very, very last segment of the show. This one is designed to eliminate brain fog for all of our listeners. The segment is called Clear the Air.
Clear it. All right.
All right. So ultimately, we just want you to be honest about challenges within the industry. This is very educational, this portion typically. So ultimately, we just want people to get better. Let's
No,
just
it's
keep on
great.
doing what we've
Yeah,
been
for
doing.
sure.
Yeah. Throughout all your time in this industry and your pursuit, did you ever have a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay. So when would this become necessary along your path?
Uh, you're normally much further along. You would have some sort of a record deal or a publishing deal normally. So you've got management, you've got an agent that's doing your bookings. I was only introduced to, a band that had a lawyer, and it was through the publishing deal. So it was through EMI. They have their own group of lawyers. And that's really when you would get to that level where you would need one even. Yeah.
So for a lot of the people starting up, don't even start to consider that.
No, that's overkill. I mean, like play tons of shows, write really good songs, have lots of fun, tour and get out of your immediate city as much as you can. I'll use, London as an example. Don't play Call the Office once a month because people will stop coming because they know they can see you next month, right? You got to make it an event. You got to don't play the same set. You got to keep mixing it up. You don't need to have crazy crap on stage and flares and a gimmick. If the songs are good, people will come back.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And then you'll find yourself with a lawyer.
That's right. And then you lawyer up.
Yeah. Did you or do you have a day-to-day manager and or a business manager and or a legal manager? We'll just break those down, but I just want to let you know there's 3 parts of that. Day-to-day manager, business manager, or legal. Yay or
Yeah,
nay?
nothing currently.
Okay. Do you have experience with them?
Yes. Manager was a bit of a conflict of interest. Was the manager and also on the label we were on. So that was a little tricky sometimes because normally you'd go to your manager to get stuff from the label. When it's the same guy, it gets a little tricky. So I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you said manager, business manager, and what was the other one?
Legal.
And legal. So yeah, those are kind of all combined, right? Like again, to the point of having like a lawyer, any of that type of stuff, they normally come in tandem. So, you might put some stuff out and then you get a manager first, and then, you then maybe get on a label or a publishing deal. And then that's normally when the legal stuff would come in. I mean, from the beginning though, it's trying to keep it simple. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do now, which Red Arms has done as far as for, spending money on getting video premieres and single premieres, right? Online. So there's companies that are awesome where you can spend a few $100, send them finished product with a video, and they'll blast it over a couple of sites as premieres on certain sites depending on the genre of music. That's going to get you hits, might get you on a Spotify playlist, and it's going to drive traffic to your Bandcamp site and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Did you ever not sign a deal? I imagine throughout your experience, you've had lots of deals, and maybe even sometimes that results in a win.
Yeah. So with the weekend. So I had to try out for that band. They were already established, had a manager and had a publishing deal. That's one of the reasons I met with the lawyer, as we were talking about earlier. I was asked to sign into the management contract. I was asked to go into the publishing contract. So they sat me down with the lawyer, booked me some time, which is pretty intimidating when you're like 21.
Yeah.
It was a little intimidating, but really at the end of the day, the band was in the hole, money to the publishing deal at that point, like tens of thousands of dollars because they had advances. and the management piece really didn't even make sense to me to get tied into all that unless I was into the publishing thing. It was kind of all or nothing, and it was actually really good advice. And for me being 21, I don't know if he told me something different if I would have went that way too, because I was naive. I just wanted to play drums. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm sitting down talking to a lawyer. But he basically, I said, like, so what do I do? And he goes, well, if they're not going to give you anything, you're going to carry some of the debt. So if you sign into this publishing deal and they're in the whole 50 grand because they got a van and they got all new gear when they signed, plus the last tour cost X amount of dollars, you're going to get a fifth of that debt when the band breaks up. I was like, oh, okay. So he goes, unless they're going to give you money up front to buy some gear and stuff, then there's no real incentive for you to do that. So I was essentially I don't want to say a hired gun because it didn't feel like that. I mean, it didn't feel like that at all. But I was the only guy really in the band that wasn't signed into anything contractually. And that later on raised tensions because I was the guy that was cashing checks when everyone else's checks were going to the debt. So your point at the beginning of it, was it a win for me? Absolutely, because I could walk away and I was getting some money when, again, we really didn't know what was being spent on what at the time. And again, I mean, we were early 20s, we were touring all over the world. I wasn't thinking about how much money was in our bank account.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How about Disney? How did any of those deals go? And then mainly, was there a takeaway? Would you do something differently?
Yeah, so I don't think anything different would happen. I wouldn't do anything differently. When you get to a situation where you're getting tracks that are being sold to major labels or companies, that's through either being on a label or through the publishing deal. That was all through EMI, all those connections, right? The song that we sold to Disney, they had one of their own bands re-record it and put it out to promote their own band that was on their label called the Halo Friendlies. So we sold the song. They had one of their bands actually do it, but then all our names are in the credits and the liner notes and then the end of the movie and stuff because it's, we wrote the song. But yeah, you really don't. I mean, I would say yes to an email from my old manager today if he's like, hey, Robitussin wants to use a Weekend song and you got 10% of the royalties on that. I'd be like, yeah, where do I sign, dude? Of course. Right?
Let's get it going.
That's where a lot of the money is nowadays, right? It's in advertising, it's in that stuff. It's not CD sales. It's all, unless you got a bunch of vinyl nerds that are buying your limited pressings, everyone's downloading stuff, right? So yeah, I mean, yeah, I would do it as many as you can, but it's normally at a certain level when that stuff kind of happens more.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. We spoke a little bit about touring earlier, but I want to know, throughout your time touring more heavily, was it a positive experience, a negative experience, or both? I mean, like, what can you highlight elements of both sides?
Yeah, I would say 99% positive for me. I would say there's some people that just can't do it, don't like it, don't like that.
What kind of person would that be?
I guess someone that doesn't like to be on the road, someone that doesn't like to, maybe can't handle themselves in certain situations. Because I'll be honest with you, when you get into a certain band and a different level, you've got a lot of free stuff available, and a lot of it is, booze and all kinds of other stuff. And I mean, you gotta,
like what?
when you're
Like
young,
what?
it's
Like what?
It's pretty easy to get involved with, more than just beer, right? There's, I'm not gonna lie, there's lots of drugs, there's lots of drinks, there's lots of all kinds of stuff, and it's pretty easy to derail if you don't have a solid head on your shoulders, right? And all of a sudden, I'll be honest with you, I've got photos from when I was on tour that I don't remember, and I'm like, God, I got the photo from that because I don't remember hugging that giant, what was that, a pineapple? Yeah,
It happens.
But it
Came out of
happens,
nowhere.
right? But I would say, yeah, I mean, I loved it when it was even smaller bands and we're doing it DIY and we're sleeping on floors. I mean, obviously now I'm not looking to sleep on somebody's floor at my age. So it would need to make sense, but yeah, I mean, I loved every minute of it. It's fantastic. And you get to travel, you get to see Canada, the state, like wherever you get to go. It's awesome. It's expensive to do that stuff on your own.
On your own, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find touring more enjoyable or less of a headache in one of the 4 countries? The US, Canada, Japan, or Australia?
Less of a headache. I would say both Australia and Japan, more was provided and done for us, so it was easier. We had someone that was with us in Japan. Obviously, there's a language barrier. We didn't know where we were going. That would translate and do all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go over here and get some cigarettes. It's like, oh, I'll get them. What flavor do you want? I'm like, what? But just we had, you know, a daily spending allowance. Like it was bonkers. So it was like all meals were paid for. It was like if you wanted something, somebody went and got it for you. Whereas, you know, and the same sort of thing in Australia, we had a tour manager, driver, lighting guy, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, those types of tours were super easy because it was all done for you. You just had to show up and play and then hang out after.
That's super cool.
Yes.
Very awesome.
It was awesome.
Goals. We got to get there one day.
Those are some solid goals. Yeah.
Beautiful, Jay. That's super awesome. That brings us to the very end of this episode. I had a fantastic time. I think you had a fantastic time, but I'm not one to put words in your mouth. Do you have any final words you would like to share?
No, I honestly really appreciate you guys reaching out. You know, I hope I added value with some of the answers I provided. I mean, I'm a huge advocate. I'm gonna play until I die. So, I mean, anytime I can give anybody information on, you know, some of my experiences, what to kind of do and what not to do, or what to kind of look for, all about it. Like, I mean, my girls are gonna be into music, and it's cool to continue to see the next generation. So I appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you today, man.
Thank you. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And music for sure will not die. Is there anywhere that listeners can find you?
Yeah, I should have probably been more prepared. I would say, just go on the old interweb. I mean, you can go to Facebook for Red Arms Band. We got Bandcamp. You know, we got merch, vinyl for sale, all that kind of fun stuff. A couple of videos from the last record we put out at the end of last year.
All right.
So
Facebook, we'll check that out then. Yeah. We'll put that on the show notes.
Until the shows again.
Yeah, right? I hear you.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Beautiful.
It's just something he does on occasion. He just stares. Smile.
Sick, thanks. Next, I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in, because without you guys, there is no show. You got to learn everything. You got to learn something every time you tune in, and that's what we aim to provide for you. Shout out to the angry or the grumpy sound guy. I always call him angry for some reason, and they're laughing at me right now, but it works. You get the message. Thank you for doing what you got to do. Prevail Media Group, you guys provide a beautiful venue and a beautiful team, and we're making a beautiful product. It's been a lot of fun. Jay, I want to say the greatest thank you to you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, all the value provided. Let's go produce. We out. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, then follow us on Instagram at go.produce. Check out our show notes, support us on Patreon, and help us grow this community. All of this and more can be found on our website at goproduce.ca. I am Big Lou, and I want to make sure that until next time, you go produce.